Hey everybody, so I'm Alyssa of Style My Profile, and I have here today, I'm very excited, Carol Mills of Malia Mills, and she's agreed to let me question her and also go over her own profile, her dating profile. So I wanted to, we're gonna do a little bit of a screen share, we're gonna kind of go over, what's working on her profile, what's not. And anyway, welcome. Thank you for
Thanks for having me.
So Carol has been online dating for how many years?
A long time.
Okay, we'll just
A
leave it at
very,
that.
very multiple years. How's
Okay.
that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And tell us what apps you're doing right now.
So I do Tinder because I think Tinder is the app where people are more likely to just say, yeah, let's meet for a drink. I do Bumble because I'm interested in the whole notion of women being the ones who reach out. And
Yeah.
I do Match because I don't know, everybody does Match. And then
Mm-hmm.
I signed up for Hidden, which is talks to you about people that you cross paths with in New York City.
Okay. Okay, cool. And I love that you do Tinder, and everybody knows that I'm a huge proponent of Tinder because I am a little biased because I met my own partner on there, but also I know many other people that have met people on Tinder.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think,
not weird. I mean, maybe if you're really young, but certainly not at my age.
no, I
It's not.
agree. And I think
Yeah,
it gets a bad rap because of what it originally started as. And I think that a lot of people still think it's that, and it's not. It kind of
right.
has
Exactly.
everything, and
Yeah.
all the apps have every aspect, even Bumble and definitely Hinge. I mean, they all have the people that just want to hook up, even Match for
Yeah.
that matter,
Yeah.
actually.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, yes, I think that's everywhere. So I love that you're doing Tinder. I actually have clients that are in their 70s doing Tinder, all over, not just in New York. I
Please,
mean,
dear God, let me not be on Tinder when I'm 70. I'm just kidding. That's only because I've been doing it for so long.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are sometimes people that have just started
Just
out.
started. I totally
Yeah,
get it.
yeah. And even my clients, I have a lot of clients in Florida actually in their 60s and
Oh, that's
70s.
interesting.
And yeah, and a lot of them are on Tinder down there. So yeah. So tell us, I guess what's your experience been so far? I mean, I know we talked briefly, and so I want to hear more about, you were saying to me that you were really feeling like you're not attracting the right people from what you have on your current profile.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's hard to determine what the right pictures are I'm trying to attract a professional guy, someone who, mostly because I've been working, I'm still in the working world. So I'm looking for someone who's similar to me in that regard. I'm looking for someone specifically who lives in New York, although I know that limits a little bit of who I might find. And I think it's just complicated. Pictures I think are the number one entry point. I mean, let's be honest, everyone looks at your pictures first. So I think because of that, I think they play such an important role that I'm trying to figure out, how do you get someone to see who you are through your pictures? And I think that's really
Mhm.
hard because I don't want to come across it. I'm a professional, but I want to come across as a professional. I'm more fun than a professional kind of a thing. So I think
It's
that's, I
unprofessional.
think that's the complicated thing we're
Yeah,
trying to figure out, right?
yeah. It's
What is
the
certainly
balance.
from an entry point, what's the first, not necessarily even wow. Well, first off, I think, right, you have to get them to stop. That's one thing. And then you have to get them to say, wow, in these pictures, I can see a little bit about who she is and what she likes to do. And
Mhm.
then I'll read a little more.
Right, right. And it's good to have a balance because I think you are trying to attract a professional type. And I know you also are a creative. So, but you're also
Yes,
a businesswoman. So you're really kind of like riding that line between, wanting to show your true creative self, but also show that you're like a powerhouse business person, which
correct,
you are.
correct.
So when Carol showed me her photos, I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share. Um, Hold on one second here. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, can you see that? Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. I hope you can't also see my disaster of a desktop.
No, it all looks good.
Okay, good. So anyway, when Carol shared with me her profile, the first thing I noticed is that, it's a beautiful profile. I mean, just as aesthetically, it's really looks great. But what I noticed is that they're all black and white photos, which of course, to a creative person, you were like, oh, this looks so cool. And this is like really me, which I love. But when Carol told me she was really trying to attract a professional type like herself, which is that other side of her, I said I thought that maybe it looked, she needed some more color photos in there, because maybe it looked like she was, just a creative and not a business person too. And not that that's not a bad thing, but because of who you're trying to attract. So I suggested she had some color photos added to the mix here. But overall, her photos, I really loved. I'm going to share, hold on, I'm going to share another one. This is a great headshot. Can you see that?
Yep.
Can you see that one? Okay. I loved this. I mean, ideally it would be in color too, but I still said she should keep it because I thought it was such a great shot, and her smile looks great, and it's a good shoulders up shot. And then, hold on. Let me go to the next one. This is another one that I love, and I think it says a lot about your personality. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, great. I love this. I love that it's like the city background, she's got a lot of energy here. I love what she's wearing. So that was a keeper. And I think you were checking to see if you had that in color. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're trying to dig up the other ones, but that's why I sent you the other pictures.
Yeah.
Similar, right? You would agree in sort of, of tone and the city view.
So. For sure. So actually, I'll share that one next. You guys did a great job. So this is the one that she came back with, which is very similar. City background, but it's in color. She had a few other ones that are a little closer up, but I did really like the full length, since it's good to have some full length photos.
I think it's really important you have a full length shot.
Yes, you know that. That's one of my, everybody hears me say that one over and over again.
Right. Well, and also I think what this demonstrates, and this is really the most important thing, is if you don't have great photos, you got to go out and get somebody to take them for you. Everybody has an iPhone. It's super easy to do. I'll give you Malia's trick. All you need is a friend to take. You just need to go out on the street, and the friend needs to take photos while you're walking. Because when you're walking, your body gives you, your shoulders move up and down. You get a much more natural stride. You have a natural stride, and the photos reflect that. It doesn't look like you're like, oh my God, I have to take a portrait picture. Right. And then when you get good ones, you can zoom in on it for one that you really want to have a closer one for a portrait. But all of us have friends who would give, and Malia went downstairs. It took us 10 minutes. We just walked down the street. She took a bunch of pictures, and then we were done.
Exactly. And I think people put so much weight into it, like it has to be this big thing, but really it is about grabbing a friend. I actually send out like a tip sheet on like what to be looking for, just making sure that everybody, because not everybody they're not as all like talented as you and Malia about these things visually, I guess.
But that's why just having your friend take it when you're walking, I promise you, it helps
it's huge. And daylight, of course, is a big, it's huge. But yeah, I think that people don't realize that they have, I mean, sometimes I'm like, just you can ask your kid, you can ask your mom, you can ask your cousin, you can ask anybody who is good with an iPhone.
Right. Well, I think people are nervous about asking. There is still this very weird thing about people don't really want to say they're online, even though everyone is online. So you just have to get over that and ask. That's why there's so many men with fish pictures, because they won't ask their friends to take their picture.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Or they have a car, them in their car selfie with this. One.
Yes.
One of my personal favorites.
Right.
Okay, and then there's one other one I want to show because I loved this. We talked about maybe trying to find it in color, but this is a great one where, you know, you're with Malia and you guys are having fun. It's such a cute shot. I love this one. Were you able to find it in color?
Malia's still looking, so we'll find them. We'll dig them up. Awesome. Unfortunately, Malia has 8 billion photographs to look through, but we'll find them.
Right. That's my problem too.
Yeah.
Okay, so then another thing that we talked about, aside from her picture, oh, here's another one I want to share too, because it's just so much personality, and I think that people can see what they can do. Oh, here we go. I love this. And of course, like, you know, as long as this isn't one of your only shots, it's fine, because, you know, she has sunglasses on, she has a hat on, which, you know,
right.
can't fully see you. But because you have so many others where you can see you, this is totally fine. And I love the cobblestone walking. It gives a very clear picture of who you are. And I think that's really huge. Okay, so then we'll talk about, I want to just talk about your bio.
Which is really hard. Not you talking about it, writing it.
I know. That's that thing that everybody has the most trouble with. Let me find the one. This one. Yeah, here we go. So I also really thought you had a great bio. The only thing we discussed is that, so something that a lot of my clients, you know, do is that they really feel like they kind of get set on just being with somebody who's in their immediate area. So I think it's good to be, you know, kind of willing to be a little more open-minded. You never know when you're going to meet somebody who, you know, might be upstate most of the time, but maybe they love coming to the city, or, you know, maybe you kind of do a back and forth thing. So I think that it's kind of limiting that she said, wait, where did you write it? Was it here? Oh yeah.
I think I wrote, you must, please.
Love New York as I do. We suggested, well, we talked about, I suggested leaving out please live in Manhattan, maybe just please love New York as I do.
Yeah.
But not,
I think we said, please want to spend considerable time in New York. I mean, we changed it to something like that, which made total sense to me.
Right. It really, And I think people are surprised at how, you know, I've had several clients meet somebody who lived outside the city and they figured it out, you know. I just talked to somebody who, they just got married. She was a total Brooklynite in my neighborhood, actually. And which I can never imagine leaving my neighborhood, and she lived here for, I don't even know, I think she said 15 years. And she met somebody on Long Island who also had kids, and they made the decision, and she moved out there, and she's so happy. You know, she's like, I never ever thought I'd leave the city in a million years. Yeah. So I think, you know, it depends on, it could be the right person, you know, for the right person, maybe, not that I'm saying you're going to move out of the city, but.
Right. No, I get it.
But also for myself, my personal story is that, so I met my partner on Tinder, and he lived half time in DC and traveled all the time. So he was actually for a long time hardly ever here. And, you know, it worked, you know, we made it work. And now he's actually here almost all the time. You know, his kids are older and he wasn't there as much. And so anyway, I think not ruling out people just based on location, because you never know what kind of situation you can come up with.
Correct.
So so that was really my only feedback on your bio, because otherwise it's great. And actually I'm going to read it if you don't mind, because I think it's helpful for people to hear. Happy NYC gal looking for a Manhattan connection in the time of COVID coming to an end. Swimwear mogul with 7 retail stores, avid New York Times reader, top-down Mini Cooper driver, loving the lights of Manhattan, art enthusiast and amateur painter, rabid traveler, no map, no phone, no problem, wicked repartee. I'm looking for a fearless partner who wants joy, intimacy, and an endless adventure for the rest of our lives. Manhattan, which we're taking out, but I fantasize about moving to Paris for a year. Bonus points if you play tennis or pickleball. And yes, my photos are current. This is I really couldn't have. This is a perfect bio. if you're taking out the please live in Manhattan, I really couldn't have Yeah, this is like the kind of, this is when I wrote in my book about writing your own bio, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So Carol gets an A plus in bio writing. And maybe we should ask her to write our bios for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you work? So tell us, did you work on that a lot, or like?
So Malia helped me. We went back and forth,
Okay.
and you know, I think similar to having a friend take your picture. It's always great to have an editor. So
Yeah.
it's always great for you to write it because that allows you to put what you want people to know about you. But then when you sort of get to where you think that's it, if you have someone who knows you well and can edit it and say, hey, I think this is great, and I think maybe we can tweak that. You know, that's sort of how we got there.
Yeah, right. Oh, good. So, and like, how many kind of did you put it up there, and then you kept changing it?
I sort of change it all the time for two reasons. A, you know, you should change your thing just because for the algorithm, it gets you more views. So I try and do that. And, you know, sometimes you like that, you want to promote that aspect. And then sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to promote that. And the other thing, because I've been online for so long, it is kind of important to just keep changing it up. You know, I think both for your psyche and for the people who are reading it, not that they'll necessarily, new people will necessarily know, but I just think it's not a bad idea. And sometimes I just write the same sentiment in a different way. So then you don't feel like it's a huge project. You just are like, oh, let me take that sentence or two and write it in a way that's new and fresh. Yeah. Same with pictures, put up one new one, you know, sort of have to make yourself do it. Otherwise it does get stale. I mean, I'm totally guilty of it, but I do know new pictures and new sentences will move you up in the algorithm. Yeah,
and I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people don't know that about the algorithm. And that and that's why I always suggest changing up is, you know, definitely every couple months at least, but if not more. Like she said, changing up your bio, adding a new picture, kind of changing the order. It's all helpful for putting you at the top of people's feeds.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So tell us a little bit more about what your experience has been, you know, dating people. So I think you said you recently did date somebody outside the city. Is that right?
You know, I go back and forth, and you know, the interesting thing for me about when I talk about not wanting to date people out of the city, I mean, I think this is kind of key because it's not necessarily true as I hear you, but what I'm trying to do is be able to have people sort of, I'm trying to with that sentence, I'm trying to define the type of person I'm looking for. So you're right in sort of softening it, but I think the hard thing about most people who've moved out of the city because they don't want to be in the city, right? They want to have a yard, they have a pool, or they want to go hiking. And not that I don't love those things, but they're not top of mind for me. Mm-hmm. So I think that's sort of a perfect segue to what I wanted to ask you, which is, I think the missing link for me personally is how to, once someone responds to me, how to respond in a way that's going to elicit information that will make sense to determine whether I should go out with them. Mm-hmm. Because Malia's not wrong when she says, you know, I go out with a lot of people, because hope springs eternal, right? You know, mm-hmm. and I'm thinking, well, no big, I'll go out for a glass of wine. But I think Malia's not wrong when she says it starts to wear, you lose the freshness of going out and dating, right? If you just become this maniacal dater. So I think the next thing I'm going to try and understand is, what can I ask them that will elicit the right responses to continue? And it did actually just happen because I did get a guy recently who said, you know, I reread your profile and I realized that I have interest out of New York, and therefore I don't think we're going to mesh. And I wrote him back and I said, I'm so appreciative of your honesty. Mm-hmm. And I said, and therefore I don't think we need to talk on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is he's decided that what I'm looking for is not for him, which is, you know, sort of great. And I think for me personally, that's why I'm trying to get the profile to get guys. But the reality is, as you know, some guys are just going, psh, psh, psh. Yeah. So I think, you know, I think a conversation about what is it that I can write in response that that will edit out some of these guys, you know?
Okay, so a couple things. One is, one of the most frustrating things for women about online dating is that men aren't as chatty on messages. And
Yes,
so
yeah,
hard
that's
to,
true.
the whole thing that they're not understanding, and I can't tell you how many times I've talked about this with my male clients, you have to keep asking questions. And for whatever reason, and I'm talking men of all ages from 20 to 70, they answer your question or answer, whatever the conversation is, they kind of comment on that, and then they don't ask anything new to keep the conversation going. So the constant frustration for my female clients is they're coming to me saying, like, what do I do? Do I keep reaching out? Like, if the conversation falls flat,
Right.
comments on what I said, but then doesn't say anything new, what am I supposed to be the one who keeps doing it, who keeps questioning, asking new questions, coming up with the material to talk about?
Correct.
It's super, super frustrating. And I mean, there's no real like solution. I wish I had it, but I think, I sometimes even tell some of my clients, like, just saying actually outright, like, okay, your turn.
Yeah.
Now you ask me something, it's like,
or just let's get together. I mean,
yeah, or better yet, let's get together. If there's something there, I am like a huge, huge proponent of, even if it's maybe not in person, let's do a video call. Let's do a 10-minute FaceTime call. Or let's.
So that's a perfect thing to also, when you talk about doing a FaceTime call, if you're going to do FaceTime, you've got to get a ring light.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Look at Carol's lighting, actually.
Because you look so much better with a ring light. And what's interesting is this we just got, but I didn't want to do Zoom calls. I'm like, oh, I look horrible. Lighting's not good. You don't look great. I don't want to talk to some guy when I feel like, oh my God, I don't look great. And so I think it actually is something that I would consider moving into, which is saying, let's Zoom for 5 minutes and just have my Zoom ring light ready, because same thing, in 5 minutes, I could probably save myself time for going and meeting them for a drink.
You can at least vet, I would say maybe 30% of people you could know right away.
Okay, I agree.
Meeting for a coffee.
Yeah.
But on that note, I'm sure you've heard my story before, and I'm going to repeat it because I think
please do
hear it. I didn't fall for my partner until our 4th date. And I've written about this a lot, but it's something really that I think is really important for people to remember, is that there wasn't any chemistry. I just thought he was a nice person. And so I was like, I'm going to just keep going, because who knows, like, he just seems like a really good guy. I'm just going to keep going out with him. And
he must have checked off boxes, though.
He did. No, he checked boxes, which is the most important one, I think, for all of us, but definitely for me at the time, from getting out of my previous relationship, was, do I feel good around the person?
Right.
Like, do I feel good about myself with this person? And I did. He made me feel like I was super interesting and super funny and super, and I'm sure part of it was an act, but he definitely made me feel like everything I was saying was like very, very interesting. And
I'm sure you felt like you didn't have to work that hard.
I
think that's the key thing to me. If you really feel like you can be with them and not work that hard, it's a pretty big deal.
And I wasn't questioning everything. And so although the sparks were not there, and I'm telling you, like, really weren't there, and then all of a sudden on our 4th date, it just was like, I don't know what happened, but it was like, and then everything just clicked. So I think that the chemistry thing is such a bad gauge for people. Like, there can be major chemistry with somebody on the 1st date, and maybe you have amazing sex, and it's like, oh my God, and then, like, maybe you never hear from them again, literally. So like, it happened to me. So I feel like, you can't just go based on that.
Well, I also think, especially with online dating, because usually your meeting is so choreographed that it's hard to actually find. So I'm in agreement with you that if it all is a possibility, then a 3rd or a 4th date. And I would say the 3rd or the 4th date, you have to sort of willfully make yourself do something out of
Yes.
let's go to dinner, because then you're only getting that same vibe, right? If you do the same thing, you only get the same vibe. Whereas if you
Yes.
say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to, if I like museums, let's just meet at a museum. It doesn't have to be 4 hours. Let's just go see one floor and just sort of see what it can be like when you're not sort of on. When you're at dinner, you're always sort of on. And the other suggestion I have is I never will go to dinner and sit opposite someone, because I can't get enough of a vibe. They're too far away. So I'm always saying either sit at the bar and eat, or have them sit next to you, because then you're going to get the other thing is I think anything that's too formal is really hard to get a sense.
Yeah, you need it to be, I totally agree. Like one of those like white tablecloth restaurants, and and the waiters are there every 2 seconds, and no.
Yeah, I literally on a date made him turn the table sideways and then sit next to me, because he was literally like 5 feet away from me. I said, this is not working. And he turned the table and sat next to me.
And not to mention that like restaurants are loud and you can't hear it.
Yes.
So I totally agree. And I love that. That's actually a great piece of advice, is to change up the venue.
Yeah, really important.
Drinks or dinner. I mean, like, you're right. Like you had mentioned to me on our phone call, like maybe go play tennis or go do something like active, or go for a walk, go for a bike ride, get on a city bike together or something.
Right, exactly. And the other thing, I think, even though I typically don't do coffee dates, because I rather make a better impression the first time. And, if the lights are kind of nice at a restaurant, it's better and you're dressed up. But I do think meeting for coffee after a certain period of time also gets you to understand what's their morning routine. Do they like working out? Would they meet you for coffee and walk in the park?
Absolutely.
And then same thing, that could be a third or fourth or fifth date that also has an expiration time, that you just can come and say, let's just meet for coffee. It's a quick hi. And I got to roll. I got to go to my job.
Right. No, I love that. That's great. I think all of those things are great pieces of advice. There was something you said that I wanted to comment on again. The change of venue. Anyway, I forgot. But so tell us anything else that you've learned in your experiences online dating.
You do not have enough time for me to tell you everything I've learned during my dating. But I'm also, one of the things I've learned, and that this is I'm also pretty quick to, or at least I'm trying to be better about valuing my time. So when you meet a guy who's really not right for you, sometimes he's not right just for some reasons. And sometimes you meet men who are just really inappropriate on many levels. And you just have to be brave and say, hey, it was really great to meet you, but I got to roll. That's why I always say I'll meet for a drink. And a drink, and you should be able to say to yourself, that could be 45 minutes. And then thanks so much. I got to roll. And then I can tell you my best trick. This is really important. All women should travel with $20 someplace easy to get to. Like my phone is on a strap around my neck and it has a pocket. So I have $20 in there. So when the date is going sideways or it's not going well, I can take the $20 out, put it on the bar. Thank you so much. I got to roll and I'm gone.
Yeah.
Right. The drink's been paid for. I've thanked him and I'm out, and nobody has to be stressed out. But I do think, speaking for myself, I'm always trying not to hurt these guys' feelings. And I probably think too much about it. But, if it's not working or they're being boorish, which happens sometimes, you just have to be bold and say, hey, thanks, got to run.
That's great. I love that too. And also, I think maybe being proactive. I always encourage people to just be proactive the next morning. If you really didn't feel it, like after when you thought about it, just being really upfront right away. Like, no, and I always appreciated that so much when
I agree.
Me and said,
I agree.
Great meeting you. I didn't really feel a romantic connection. I wish you all the best. Like it was so mature and so easy to do. And it always made me feel so good when somebody did that for me.
Yes, I totally agree. And honestly, with rare exception, when you write that, you're not writing it to someone who's surprised by it. Right.
Yeah.
Usually everybody sort of gets it, right? They've had an hour together and they're leaving and they're thinking, well, he was a nice person, but not for me. I'm not bold
Yeah.
enough to say right then, hey, it was a nice evening, but you're not for me. But I do agree when you write the next day, they're usually saying, yeah, it wasn't a match.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. There were a couple times I was surprised when somebody said that, but yeah, for the most part, I wasn't. It was like
Well,
expected.
I remember the first time it happened though, and I was surprised. But then when I really thought about it, I was like,
Yeah.
seriously, right? The
Yeah.
guy didn't live in New York, and I
It's
showed
your
up in
ego.
sort of
It's your
some
ego wants to say, wait a minute.
exactly.
Yeah. But
Exactly.
you usually have the
Exactly.
same.
I showed
Yeah.
up in sort of a very fashionable outfit, and he was super conservative. And I thought, but he was nice. But then when he wrote that the next day, I just don't think we're a match. I was like, really? And then I thought to myself, you know what?
You're like,
Really?
I'm amazing.
Really?
Exactly. I know.
I think sometimes they check certain boxes, which means you ignore the fact that the other boxes that weren't checked are actually very important boxes, in terms of who you are and how you want to live your life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. And just one last question, because I think this is something that a lot of, well, everybody, men and women, what do you do about burnout? Like when you start to feel burnt out from
Oh,
online dating, I usually recommend people taking a break for a while and then coming back to it, feeling fresh, or do
yeah.
you kind of just keep going?
Well,
Or,
I think that happens organically, that you'll set up a bunch of dates and then you realize, oh, I'm just exhausted and it hasn't really yielded anyone. So then you really just sort of say, let me just sort of kick back and do something for me. And, get back to cleaning my house because, if you're running around at night, your whole house falls apart. So I really find it's sort of a natural kind of like this,
Yeah.
And also the other thing I'm really, really trying to do, even though it's really hard because you always think, well, he might be the one, is to really, really be more discerning, to just say, really, do you really think that's the right guy for you? Or you just like, I haven't gone out with anybody in a while. And I think that contributes to burnout a lot, to just not say, I just have to really more tightly edit who I think I should go out with.
I totally hear you. Yeah.
And I think you get also hornswoggled a little bit, don't you love that word, by that men literally do this. They're not reading anything. They are literally just going online for an hour and swiping right.
They are reading the bios though, at least clients that come to me. So maybe that's a fair grouping, because they're definitely people that want to put their best foot forward. So they're reading the profile. So not all men are
just doing that. Well, it's hard to know because they are sandwiched in between, right? You're getting this person, but then you're getting this person that read. Yeah. And I also think, here's the thing that I think is really important because it drives me crazy, is when you respond to men, because I can't believe people don't do it with me. It's so simple when you read their bio to write to them and say, hey, Bob, super interesting to read about that you love sailing, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get together and talk about travel adventures. There's 2 sentences you can write. And I'm amazed at how many guys write and they're like, hi, or hi, Carol. I'm thinking, wow, I gave you this. I didn't give you a long bio. I didn't make you read for a long time, but I gave you some really specific things. So I do, when people respond, like the bonus point thing that I have actually has yielded a lot of guys write and say, I want to collect my bonus points for playing tennis, or I want to collect my bonus points for pickleball.
Yeah.
So somehow that resonates with them and it makes it easy for them to respond to me. And then I know they play tennis or pickleball. So I think that you're right. Sometimes even I write that and I get back, hi. I'm thinking, oh my God, just one sentence, just think a little, but I do think you're right. I do think men are not as clear thinking as women in this regard.
And they're not as good at overall, and I'm not talking about every guy, but they're not as good at messaging, text messaging.
Yes.
And it's challenging for women.
Yes.
And I sometimes feel like I want to just just teach a webinar to men on
right. Well, men in general, I don't think they don't like chitter chatter. So when I met my husband, the first time he called me to ask me out on a date, and he said later, I just wanted to ask you on a date. I didn't really want to have a long conversation. So anyway, it's a way I remind myself that it's a balance, right?
Yeah.
It's a balance for how much they can give, and
sure.
just don't assume that it's not genuine, even if it's just a little bit.
Right. Oh yeah, no, that's so true. Well, thank you. This has been so helpful. And I feel like for anybody who's watching, who's online dated, even, for if you're new to it, or if you've been doing it forever, I think this is all really super helpful to hear.
And I would end with, Alyssa, because I think this is really important for the gals that look to you for help. I think you're enormously helpful, even if you have the confidence or most of us don't have the confidence that what we put up is actually right.
Mm-hmm.
So your acknowledgement of what I had done gives me sort of a new little pep in my step for going out to get dates.
Great. Yeah.
So I do think it's important, even if you think you've sort of nailed it, that you're able to come in and say, wow, this is actually great. And even your suggestion about just tweaking that sentence about Manhattan,
mm-hmm.
I think is super valuable. I mean, I probably would have been fine without it, but I think it more clearly identifies what I'm looking for. So I'm super appreciative of you going through all that. I think it's I think somebody like you that can look at it with a fresh eye and an editorial eye is actually really great. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thanks for letting me do this. This is so fun.
Yeah. Well, we all of those that work with you, I think would probably call you their cheerleader.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's what I sometimes say is like, sometimes you do just need a cheerleader, honestly.
Right. And we all definitely need a cheerleader and coaches. It's super important. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad. This is so fun. We should do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like everybody's probably getting so much valuable information from you.
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you soon.
We'll talk soon. Thanks, Alyssa.
Bye.
Bye.